If you're watching this on YouTube and aren't subscribed, make sure and click the subscribe button, like, comment, let us know what you think about the episode. If there's a particular guest or topic that you'd like to have on the podcast, we'd love to hear your feedback and then get your suggestions on to future episodes. Today I'm going to be joined by the owner and founder of FASS Fuel Systems. Had a ton of requests over the years to have him on. I'm looking forward to talking with him, not just about products and how he started and diesel in general, but he just had a huge video that they recently did about how his F450 got ruined. I wanted to ask him about that and also some other stances that he takes in the diesel industry and also outside of it that I think is going to be really helpful for other shop owners out there or people who are just looking to learn more about ways to upgrade their truck and want to know more about the company. So I'm looking forward to chatting with him today. Before we get to it, I want to give a shout out to one of our sponsors that helps make the Diesel Podcast possible. Kershaw Knives has a 40% off MSRP code for you. If you go to kershaw.kaiusa.com, use code 40 TDP 2024, get you 40% off MSRP. It's a great way to save some money, get some cool gear if you're in the market for an EDC knife, something for hunting, fishing, around the job site, around the house. They got you covered with a bunch of different choices for blade steel, blade shape, handle design, different opening mechanisms. So if you're in the market, take advantage, use code 40 TDP 2024 and get 40% off some cool gear. All right, let's get to today's podcast with Brad Ekstam from FASS Fuel Systems, talking about how he started the company, the future of diesel, how his F450 got ruined, and more. Brad, welcome to the Diesel Podcast. I've been wanting to talk with you for a really long time, and our audience has as well. You're probably the most requested guest we've ever had on the Diesel Podcast. So I'm looking forward to chatting with you today, learning more about you, the origins of FASS, and how unique FASS is, and in not just the marketplace, but the way you guys engage with your fans and your customers. So I'm looking forward to chatting today, Brad.
Well, good morning, Patrick. And it seems like you've interviewed everyone else, but and my son also. My son, if you really, I don't know how well you know him, but he hates to speak. And now, if he has something to say, he's kind of like that guy on Gone in 60 Seconds. And at the end, he lays out an elaborate speech at the end. That's how
Yeah.
Spencer is when he has something to say. But if he doesn't, he's hush.
It's, believe it or not, that's how I am. It's just diesel trucks and topics kind of bring out my my extroverted side. So I love being able to talk about it. I have one question that I've thought about for years. Well, I haven't thought about it. I've just had it kind of in reserve. Somebody asked me a long time ago. They said, "Can you get Brad on the podcast and have him talk to us about the origins of starting the company?" And I thought that would be so cool to have you take us back to the beginning of starting FASS, where the idea came from, getting it started, and maybe lessons you learned along the way, what challenges were there, but what it was like at the very beginning.
Well, it was interesting because we had no idea what we were working on at first. And what I mean by that is that, and this might turn into what might sound a little bit of a sales pitch, but it's very educational, okay? But we had a semi that was supposed to be the engine of the time, okay? And it's a 444 step timing Cummins, okay? It was a mechanical engine. And realize this, all electronic engines now are still mechanically injected. It's just electronically controlled. So we had an engine that was just falling on its face, and we didn't have to pay for any repairs. We'd take it in for warranty. They'd work on it. We had our downtime because we were usually under a load. But what the truck was doing is, for about the first 45 minutes, it would pull really strong. And when I mean pull strong is also pulling smooth, and I didn't have smoke going out the stacks. And the manifold pressure gauge was sitting there and just be pulling up nice and smooth and hold. And when you're in a hard pull, it just sits there and just rocks, is steady. But after you go down the road, and I'm not going to tell you what's causing it because we didn't know at that time. And then we'd start going down the road. And then it's that manifold pressure gauge would sit there and start fluctuating about 2 and 4 pounds on a hard pull. Then we started noticing smoke out the stacks. And then at the same time, the engine wasn't quite running smooth. And when you run, I remember those days, and I don't think they can come after me, but there's times that I was running 3 logbooks. Okay, we didn't have the ELDs. So we had 3 logbooks. And I found out if you had your logbook zipped up in an envelope, one of those big envelopes and sealed with a stamp on it. They couldn't open it. So, so I had to run miles. We ran, but we'd take it in, and then they send it back to us and run good. We thought, all right, they fixed it. But then that 45-minute, an hour mark came around and started running the same. Went back in, back in, back in. Well, anyways, we finally found out what they were looking for. They were replacing fuel lines. They were replacing every 90-degree fitting, okay, and replacing it with mandrel if they could. They were looking for leaks, air leaks. They were looking for restriction because that creates vapor, air. And then, okay, and then we asked the mechanic, okay, if you're looking for leaks and you're looking for air, what about this air in the filter on a suction side filter? When you take it off, the filter is never full to the top or seldom full. Oh, it's supposed to be like that. Well, we spoke to a guy by the name of Harold Webb from Cummins, and he sent us a service topic from 1965. I used to have it memorized, okay? But it talked about where the air came, the vapor, the air is the fuel is I forgot how it went, but it was talking about the source of the air is the fuel itself. Like water fuel contains a certain amount of air depending upon fuel temperature, agitation, specific gravity, things like that. And that told us that we were always going to have this problem. And then, of course, they tell you you're the only one having the problem. But we were leased on with different companies, and we were talking to them, and they weren't having and it was other engines having some of the same problem, just not as severe because the 444 not only had the timing at the injector, the air throwing the timing off, because air is compressible like air is in a brake line that throws your braking off. It had an STC valve, which is step timing control valve that advanced and retarded the timing off of fuel pressure. But when there's air in it, makes that valve flutter in and out of time. So we got over 70 horse increases on those. And you'd notice 2 solid gears on a pull that you'd pick up. And also on those engines, you would see about 1.5 mile increase, which was huge for semis. Now we see about 4/10 on the semi, sometimes 7/10, depending on the engine. But yeah, that's how it got going.
Was it, as far as when you discovered it and had these results, how did production of it start? Was it a switch immediately that turned where you thought, okay, there's going to be a lot of other, companies or guys out there that are going to need this. I need to start building this product, this kit, to be able to help them as well? Or was it slower or kind of quick, or how did it go?
Well, at first, we had to figure out how to separate the air out, which we kind of took about 2.5 years, but we kind of reversed how that Cummins service topic described how it was separating in the first place. But then we had to port it somewhere. Also just build up, filter, and create the same problem because we put a pump on it, and that took care of a little bit of it, but it just forced the air through. But then when we first started off with FASS, and I mean, we were a rainy day project for our machine shop. They would do that. And I remember down in my basement at my home, and when I got 10 sold in a day on my yellow Post-it note, I was like, yes, yes. And then it just started taking off, and we weren't ready for that. And we paid some prices for that. Now we have I've hired, one thing I know about me, I'm only good at a few things. And I've been blessed with some great people. So I've surrounded myself with people, and then the way that we work with our vendors, and I'm loyal as a dog until you go screwing me, which, people just found out about that. And then I found out that they were also screwing other people. So now I'm a dog with a gun. So, and I'm not going to shoot anyone. Okay. But yeah, it just started really taking off and just been, we had some years where we didn't grow much. That I think that's 08, 09, 010, but we're still growing through those great Democrat years. So yeah,
we have a lot of younger entrepreneurs that listen, and they're specifically in automotive, in the diesel industry. And I wanted to ask you a couple things about what you mentioned there with the growth. And because they get the perception from social media that you start something, it explodes, you make a ton of money. Now you've got the $100,000 truck, the big house, the boat, you've got all that stuff. And once they get into it, they realize it's much slower. So being with the success that you've achieved in this industry, what would you tell them to expect or think about when they start something? It doesn't even have to be in diesel. It could be any industry, but that's going to be most of our listeners. How should they expect growth to be, or how do they keep focus when it is a little bit slower, or it's not taking off, or you're only selling a couple things, or only a couple trucks are coming into the shop? How do you keep your focus?
Well, we're going through that right now because we're starting 4 more companies, and we have 3 more on the hit list that we're starting. So we'll have 7 more companies that we're adding, and we have different people for each one except for the management groups. But the first thing I would say to someone, because I have people approach me often, and I'm going to repeat to them, repeat what Bob Behall, he's a sniper from Vietnam, he is my VP. And one of the sayings that he said is that don't let someone else's debt impress you. Because what looks like, Facebook looks like all cheers and everything, that's not their life. And then another one that Robert Thompson, my accountant, said to me that I'm holding on to is you deserve what you tolerate. So you need to realize that there's going to be work without being paid. You can probably make more money at McDonald's at first. Okay. And now some people start off with a clientele. That's great. I'm thinking of a gentleman down in Texas on the outer loop of San Antonio. He already had a clientele coming with him when he left the Ford dealership, and he booked that place. But he has quality work. So the other thing that I would tell a business owner, and this is their weakness, business owners don't know how to say no. They always think they can do the job when the guy needs it, and they don't know how to say, you know what, here's what I can do for you. They tell him, yeah, I can get to it in 3 weeks. 3 weeks comes, and he knew that he couldn't get to it in 3 weeks. 3 weeks comes and goes. You just told your customer no by actions.
Is that knowing your limitations? I imagine that would be really kind of hard to do in one sense as an entrepreneur, is you don't want to limit yourself, so you think you have to tackle everything. But then also being self-aware enough to know this is going to create more issues when I can't get to it, and then the customer's upset, and then there's a bad Google review or a bad something that's out there, and now you've got another problem to handle.
When that Google review says he held my truck for 3 weeks, we're going through this with one-way diesel performance in Nacogdoches right now, because what they did to me and other people. But they say yes to everything, and their actions don't follow what they say. It's kind of like your kids follow you best by your actions, not your words. So, and I think so many problems in life, especially with our spouses, if we would look in the mirror, we could fix the problem. You're laughing for a reason.
I was thinking of that Bill Burr. He's got a comedy. It's a stand-up thing, and he's talking about being married and how with him and his wife, he's always working on him. But his wife's like the perfect, complete masterpiece that doesn't need any work. So it just reminded me of that.
No, I will say it's probably 70% me and 30% my wife. But you know what? When I do something around the house, and I'm always I take care of my responsibilities, but I'm a big child. I just said I'm full when I do something. And she doesn't know what to say to that. So
I did want to ask you a little bit about last week. I was on maybe TikTok or Instagram, and I saw this video that you guys had released talking about this issue with I think it was an F450 that you guys have. And I know it got a ton of plays out there, but for maybe any of our listeners that didn't hear about it, don't know, anything that's going on, can you give us a little background or a little review on what's taking place?
I thank you very much for bringing that up because it hit home with me. And before we hang people, remember whenever we point to people, we have three fingers pointing back.
Yeah.
Hey, honey, what did you do with my keys? Oh crap! I left them. Um, so I gave them. They tried to deliver the truck. They had an extra attempt. They had three deliveries attempts with one that I didn't even accept it, and that was on the original first build on TV. That's one-way diesel performance, which I kind of understood. Now, I also understood taking a truck back like that it wouldn't be perfect and there would be somewhat of a punch list. This punch list is probably 120 items long from the seatbelts falling out, going down the road, about to fall out, doors not opening, windows not rolling up and down, the panels coming off, weather trim coming off, to the frame being horribly welded, to the drive shaft being horribly welded, to when they put in the third row of seats for the six doors so I could take my grandkids that I adopted. Okay. That when they moved the seats, they didn't leave hardly any room for the back seat, but a ton of front. It looked like a mega cab, but extended. Didn't plug the holes that they didn't use. When they mounted the seats here, they used one nut didn't even have a washer. Some had a washer, bigger, and some had a bigger. Then they talk about putting the plate of steel across. I have so many electrical lights that, electrical issues, lights that don't work at night. You have to turn the dome light on and you have to find that dome light to turn it on. To just the paint being horrible is supposed to be clear broad. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen next. And here's the thing that I found out about these people. I had my friends from Industrial Injection send a turbo down for the build. Jairus, that's listening right now, that's the producer of the show that we were on. He told me about Forced Induction sending a turbo. And I don't have twin turbos on that truck, and I don't think I have either one of those turbos on the truck. So I called, we did a video of him going around the truck saying that he's going to fix this and that it's going to be Ford OEM quality standards. And he's done this to a lot of other people now that we put out Beware One-Way Diesel Performance. And what really upsets me about this is that when you go there, you can't even shake his hand. They have to hug you, tell you they love you. Hey, brother. And they hide behind the Christian shield, which I used to be an atheist something about 14 years ago. So people like that really piss me off. So, but now that we have Beware, we're getting so many replies. And what got me going on them in the first place, besides doing me wrong, my mother-in-law and my wife went to Yelp, Better Business Bureau, Chamber of Commerce, and it was like deja vu. So now there's some things I can't tell you that's going on right now, but you're going to find out about it pretty soon. That's even a lot bigger than what I've done. I just got it stirred up. Okay. And then there's a lady there, a 67-year-old widow, bought a truck from Chase for $30,000. He's supposed to get it up and running, do all kinds of stuff, and she doesn't have a vehicle now. So this is a great place to put it. We are trying to get hold of that lady. I want to go collect the truck from One-Way Diesel Performance with my film crew. And I want to collect that truck. We're going to bring it up to FASS Fuel Systems, FASS EGR, and we're going to build that truck for her. No charge. And yeah, people might say it's promotional, things like that, see it, but you know what? It's not for that. A little bit, yes, but the main intent is to take care of that lady. And because Chase, and that's not even his real name, Chase Wells and Tommy Wells. Chase is not his real name. They've hurt a lot of people, and Diego, they hurt their Crooks family. So yeah.
Do you think you've seen everything in diesel from the beginning, the early days till here, 2024? Do you feel like the industry has gotten better with how it takes care of its customers over the years, or do you think it's reverted, gotten worse? Has it stayed about the same? What are your perceptions?
I think we're better. I think some people there's always crooks out there. And the Crooks family, that's her last name, Crooke. Okay. They're not crooks. They're great people because I've gotten to know them. But there are crooks everywhere. But now we have the border wide open, and then they're trying to take our guns. So I guess we get on that later. But
Okay.
um, but no, I know a ton of great dealers. I know a ton of them. Like I used to make calls before I had my outside reps going. We have 4 of them now that travel the country. I used to do it myself 7 months out of the year, and I'd pull up to the dealer. It was a great way of finding out what we're doing right and wrong, because we didn't get here without any black eyes. I can tell you that. But just some of the dealers that really come to mind is out in Salt Lake. Those guys don't really bash you. They send business to each other. They know what they're good at, what they're not. If they're busy, they kind of refer business over there. They get the customer taken care of, and they seem to have a great hub of great dealers there. And there's others around the country, but that one just really struck me of how they all, yes, they compete with each other, but they also operate as a team to take care of the customer.
I got, well, I would say about 2007 or 8 is when I really got interested in diesels. And I was in a completely different industry. I worked in like construction management, and so I didn't have anything to do with it, but I would get the magazines, I'd read about it, I'd see different things going on. And through that kind of evolution is when I decided, hey, I want to do this as a career. And I kind of took a roundabout path to get to where I am today. But I remember early on, it was very kind of segmented. It was very much like somebody built a truck that made this power level. You didn't know what he was running, how he did it. It was all secret. They'd always keep the hood down. You just didn't know. And over the last, I don't know, maybe decade, but especially the last 4 or 5 years, I think this is kind of where we get into the opinionated topics, is the industry has come under assault, and it's changed vehicles, it's changed what's on them, it's changed the racing scene, it's changed so much. So one thing that's always jumped out at me is that way of kind of being secretive or not wanting to collaborate doesn't really work in 2024, because you're not just fighting each other for business and working on a truck or shipping a part. There's a lot of outside pressures that are affecting the industry. I wanted to ask you for your opinion on that side of it as it relates to collaborating in the industry, working together to be stronger as opposed to being segmented or divided. And it's just, kind of folding to these outside pressures that are being placed on it.
Well, I think we have politicians standing up for us. SEMA did not stand up for us. And I'll throw that right out there now. SEMA did not stand. I forgot all the actions they took, and that's why I backed out of them, out of SEMA. But I think we have a lot more people. You know what? We're not so childish now. I think we've matured as a market and as businesses. And the thing is that, you look at Corey and what he's going through. I just think we've grown up some, and we know how to attack and combat it, because there's a way to do it. Especially with that last ruling. And I forgot the details and all that. It's just not right at the top of my head. Jake knows all about that, but just the last ruling that took away, and you could probably touch on that, but it took away their rights of interpreting the law.
Yeah, the Chevron deference case.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yes. But, I think when we go and I see people together, I see competitors talking to one another instead of just thinking that they're enemies, and things like that. And we compete with each other. It makes us better. So.
I really love that you guys do this, and I mentioned it to you a little bit before the podcast, is how I know exactly where you stand from following you guys on social media. There's no ambiguity. I know where you stand on whether it's related to automotive or any other sort of issue. And this kind of goes back to the entrepreneur question I asked earlier, is I think when you come into maybe any business, you think, well, I need to hold my opinions kind of behind a curtain. I don't talk about them. I'm the face of the company. I don't take a stance on anything. And I see the response from your guys' fans, your customers on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, how they respond and like and I think probably even generate business because they like that you're taking a stand on something. Have you always been like that? Was there a time you said, I'm just not going to be quiet anymore? I'm going to share my opinions. How did that come to be?
Ron White said, I had the right to remain silent, but didn't have the ability. If something's wrong, it's wrong. And, and I've changed my ways, and my friends know me, my close friends know me that of, if there's something going on that I don't like or that I have an opinion on and all that, I won't, I'll state it, I'm sorry, I'll bring up one example. I don't go to strip joints anymore. I think that's disrespect to my wife and God and things like that. And I used to visit them all the time, way back about 20 years ago. So if I'm out with a bunch of people, a bunch of friends and all that, a party, and they want to go to the strip joint, they go without me. So I'm going to die with integrity and morals. So and we're not like in politics. We're not talking about 28% tax rate versus 34% tax rate. We're talking about sending your kids to school, them castrating your kids at school, cutting their balls off, and then if you want to argue with it, they put you in jail. How do you get to that point? If we were talking about 28 versus 34%, that's a debate. But taking your kids' balls off and putting them on puberty blockers, that's not right. And we need to speak up when things are like that. I used to be able to understand where the Democrats are coming from. I couldn't quite agree with them, but I could understand their argument. Now I have to smoke crack to understand them.
Common question we get from you guys a lot is, hey, I need a diesel engine. I either, I can't wait this long to get one, or normal place I get stuff from it just takes too long, or they don't have the parts in it that I need. Maybe my truck's not stock, or I tow heavy with it. I don't want to go back with just a stock engine. DFC Diesel is a sponsor of the podcast. We worked with them, hand in hand on doing episodes, answering technical questions. They have a complete lineup of Cummins, Duramax, and Power Stroke remanufactured engines that are set to a standard of ISO 9001 2015 standards, which is a huge deal in the aftermarket. And there's certain levels of quality testing, validation that are required for that. So when you get one of those engines, the type of quality that's built behind it with an industry-leading warranty that's really comprehensive. And the other thing with that is sometimes the options that are out there, it's a basic OEM engine. You want a little bit more. You don't want to have the same failure again. So there's a bunch of different series of engines that they have, from core, street, tow haul, and also the Speed of Air series, which we've covered on the podcast before. There's a lot of really cool benefits to it. And if you have questions about that, reach out to them. If you don't know the type of engine that you're looking for, if you go to dfcdiesel.com, there's a ton of info there. You can send an email or you can reach out to them. Also, they're working with Speed of Air pistons, which it's the only piston that pays for itself. And there's a lot of really cool technology behind it. So you can add that into your build and be able to get better fuel economy, increase power, increase torque, and better engine life out of it. Some of the most common engine applications or series of engines that they have with that lead time, a lot of them are in stock or they have really short lead times. So you can check your favorite retailer or go to dfcdiesel.com, check them out, see what's in stock, see what you can get. If you have questions, maybe you want to do something that's outside of the normal series of engines, they have tons of choices for rods, cranks, pistons, valve train upgrades, tons of different things. So if you're in the market, definitely make sure and head on over and check them out. I'm just trying to think of some comments that I've heard over the years from different people in business where they'll say that they might agree 100% with everything you just said, but they'll say, well, I don't want it to affect my business by giving my opinion out or talking about it on social media. And I've seen there's a massive change in society, not just even with the things you just mentioned, but the way companies on both sides will talk about their opinions, their perceptions, their stances. And so it's almost become, to me, where it's more accepted now, but I don't hear or see a lot of it from, say, some of the positions you take. It's more quiet. That's how they feel in private, and they'll talk to you at a show after, after it about that. But it's not front and center on their, like their social media or anything that they do with video. But then on the other side, I hear about it all the time. I see it on videos. I see it on everything. Is that, how would you say it impacts the business side, if at all?
You know what? For one, I think it helps us for one, because even if people disagree with me, they the way that I talk about it, I don't go out and hold Nancy Pelosi's head chopped off. I don't talk about blowing up the White House. I don't talk about that. I approach it in a little bit different way. And when I debate with people, I like to ask questions that they can't answer. Okay. But people need to grow a set. They do. Because if we don't speak up, we're not going to have the right to speak. And it's the way that we speak. Look at Robert Kennedy Jr. now in Trump's campaign, and Trump is speaking so much better now. We had dinner with him in 2018, and he's off camera. And if he was spoken off camera like he is now, he would have had 20% more of the vote. That's just my guesstimation in 2020. But look what Trump's done for us. I have a picture of him on my back taking a shot to the head. We're selling those shirts. We're giving to his campaign. But people better speak up, because when we lose our guns, once you lose your second, you're going to lose your first. Or vice versa. So we need to speak up, but it's how we do it, and because there's 13% on the left that you can't talk to. They're just morons. They're idiots. But the other, 37% middle, the left, you can negotiate with them. And it's how you negotiate, how you present it out there. Just like me talking about castrating a kid. No one wants to send their kids and have them castrated, not with people that have minds. Look at Elon Musk losing his son Zaire. And I can go on examples, all this coming over. We have the Venezuelan gangs. And they know they're lying, because they tried shutting Trump down from putting the border wall up. So we need to speak up.
Do you think that things have become so, I guess intense might be the right word, that if you have a platform, you have a voice, you have a duty to be able to speak up about whatever someone's opinions might be, that the stakes are so high now that it's almost a duty to do that?
I think it is, and I think it's a duty. Yes, I do. And maybe it's the way that you say something. You can go up to your wife and tell her that she looks like the last day of a long, hard winter, or you can tell her she looks like the first day of spring. It means the same thing. But you're going to get in trouble on one of those statements. So I think it's on how, like my mom, she's very strong and conservative, but if you don't agree with her, she's going off on you. Now I like to leave seeds, because you're not going to go up to her and say, "Oh, Mufasa, you're the greatest. I'm going to change my ways." Leave seeds so when they walk away, they can think about it.
Do you think that, as it pertains to automotive and diesel, and when you look at the landscape of what's going on in society, the things you just mentioned, the growth that you're having with FASS and other companies bringing that all in, what do you see in diesel's future in the next few years, but then also longer term? Like, do you see the EV market just exploding in the future, and that's what most people are driving? Do you see diesels taking a back seat? What's your outlook?
I travel a lot, and I love driving because it's not downtime. I can listen to podcasts. I can educate myself, but I get to build a lot of relationships on the phone and keep my relationships going around with the different manufacturers and different dealers. Okay, so I'm always on the phone or thinking. Okay. But as I drive, I see gas station after gas station after gas station after gas stations being built. I'm not a genius, but those people are probably a lot smarter than me, and they're probably knowing that 2035 is going to come and go. And EVs, I think, are cool. I like Elon Musk. I just wish he would say, you know what? We're probably hurting the environment more, but we're just moving the pollution away. And so if you're in the city and you don't have good airflow, these are great. If you don't want to go across the country in cold weather, these are great. But I think they're going to hit such a wall. And I think they kind of like they did with COVID. They tested us during COVID. That was a test to see how sheepish we are. So I think we have a great market, but I'm also diversifying in some of those other companies. But that's not because I'm scared that this market's going anywhere, because it's hard to beat the combustion engine.
I think that was a lot of the pushback that I would see, and even thoughts I would have myself, is I definitely see a market for EVs in certain areas. They make sense. But it seemed like it was this national push for everything to go that direction, where you're not going to have an EV-powered one-ton truck that's hauling hay bales or towing other vehicles or other things like that. It has its place, but it felt like it got pushed too quick, and then you got pushed back, and I don't even know where it's at now. I don't pay attention that closely, but it just seemed like too much too fast.
I think the Democrats have repeated that over and over. They sit there, and at first it was take a little freedom here, a little freedom there, a little more money here, a little this. But Trump pissed them off so bad. Trump was like the guy you take the laser off your gun and you run it around the carpet and you watch the cat chase it. That is my perfect analogy of Trump with the Democrats. They would just eat it up. But then when they got in power, they went so far, so fast. Instead of turning the heat up into a boil on us slowly, they just threw us in a pot of boiling water. So I think it's great what they tried. They showed their true intentions. So, yeah, I'm not shy about answering, as you can see. So,
Well, I love having podcasts like this because they're real. We didn't script any part of this, and I can just ask you so many questions that I'm personally curious about as well that I don't know the answer to, or I just want to know how someone like yourself views it, because you've been highly successful in this, and I've mentioned it on other podcasts. When you talk about a build with somebody, one of the first things that's always in everybody's list is a FASS Fuel system. It's just synonymous with any engine, any power level you're going to. That's a tremendous amount of success that is there. With looking out, I'm curious about the performance side. I saw a video this morning. I'm not sure if you saw it, but Jake did it, and you guys had a 6.7 Power Stroke at FASS Motorsports, and it's all emissions on, and there's a bunch of different parts on it. There was like an intake and some other things. I wanted to ask you about emissions on performance. Does that excite you as somebody in this industry? Is it something that you could see, kind of like those early days of 2001, 2004, when people were putting different turbos on and injectors, and they were really excited about their Cummins or Duramax or whichever truck it was? Do you think people are going to be like that with emissions on performance?
I do, because you have the gas market doing that. You still have the gas market growing. It's doing the same thing, but I have a double. Spencer and I, we were speaking about 3 weeks ago, and this came up. We was talking about the emissions on and the DPF and EGR, that the EGR filter really helps big time. You talk about selling a turd. That EGR filter is boring. I thought filters and pumps, that's how people see us, is boring. This is like selling a turd and how boring it is. It's not exciting, but what it does is cool. But my point is that we were talking, and I'd like this to be out there, because we're only telling people to put it on if you can't get rid of if you can't go through a weight loss program. and I actually came out and defended Spencer. He didn't like how I did it because I pulled a gun on our screen, and we got 350,000 likes before they took me down. But we blurred the gun, okay? Because I don't, there's certain things, a lot of things I don't like about our government. But if we could get rid of that law, we would love to take the EGR filter off the market, okay? Because he doesn't like it. I don't like it. The only reason I like the DPF is because when I'm going out with my wife, I don't have to wear diesel cologne if I walk behind the truck. So, but other than that, I like it because I have an '07 that's built, around 1,500 horse, '07 mega cab. So, but I think it's still exciting because, I have some fast cars. I like my trucks. The way they just pull, grunt, and you feel like you're ripping up asphalt. And you're in a pickup, and you see people's facial expressions. Now, I wasn't going over, the speed limit, but when we did that, it was down in Mexico. So,
It's been really cool to see how the market has started to offer emissions on performance, whether it's a carb tested turbo, or I know there's tuners out there that are working on that. It's been cool to see the power levels jump up again, but I love that EGR filter kit because what I heard for years and years was you only had two options. You had to live with this EGR pumping back all this stuff into your intake, into your engine, or it went on a weight loss. And in some scenarios, people can't do it, or maybe they don't want to do it. But there wasn't anything to be able to say, hey, how can I, limit some of these EGR gases going back into my engine to keep it cleaner and all that stuff. So it's the first product of its kind in diesel that does anything to help. So that's what I got really excited about because it gave people options.
yes. And I think what we're working on is making things better. That's what the fuel system was. We make that, we triple the life of the injection system. There's a lot of other benefits, side benefits, and that's was it. When we designed it, it was not for injection life. It was for horsepower and fuel mileage. And I should say consistent horsepower. Because we made it run a little bit better than when it was running, when it ran good, a little bit better, but all the time, because all the variables going down the road. And then the EGR system is going to at least increase the life at least 6 times. You're going to have to service a filter, and that's not too difficult to service. So, but yeah, Spencer's getting a lot. He's getting some pictures of before and after now. Well, not before and after, but we should say with the EGR filter and without the EGR filter, and it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's been really cool to see that, and then also just how it fits in the engine bay, how well designed it is. I'm really excited about it. I know that it's not as flashy as a turbo or compound turbo kit or some of those other things people like to see.
We could maybe sign it for him. It'd be cool. but yeah, and Spencer, I got diesel. Like you getting into the diesel market, it's a bad drug. It's a bad drug. My son got the kids, his friends involved with it before he had a truck, and they bought diesels as kids, and then he even had his own shop for a while that they just rented together, and they worked on their own vehicles. And now he doesn't have that because what we have now, but it's a drug, and he loves working on trucks. He loves trucks, and he's getting into some cars now that he loves to wrench, but more than that, he loves fabricating. That triple turbo setup that he did,
Yeah,
and he taught himself how to weld, and he's a perfectionist and almost to a fault. So, but I'm real proud of him and his abilities. Because super glue holds better than my welds.
yeah, it's really cool how sometimes I think back to the early days when you get together with your friends and one of them gets a part and you help him put it on in his garage, and then you go out for a test drive and you feel the difference, and then you want it for your truck, and it just starts to take off, and it comes back to, I think, what a lot of enthusiasts want was you wanted this truck that could do everything. You could tow with it, use it for work, take the family someplace, but you could also go to test and tunes or take it to the track, drive it home, go back to work on Monday. And he kind of had this do-all vehicle where you didn't need to have, a separate car to go quick and your work truck, and you could kind of combine two vehicles into one or three vehicles into one.
And that screws up other aspects in your life, because if you can do all these things with your truck, when you're doing something on your, I mean, you look at, okay, if I go in this arena and I'm drawing a blank, what all can be involved in this? So, and I'm drawing a blank, but it says, what other options could I do with this? Because it's so multi-use.
Yeah, that's what got me hooked. I thought of one other question I wanted to ask you, and this is the 8th year I've done the podcast, so I've gone through 2 election cycles. So this is my 3rd one, and this is a business question.
Okay.
Is sometime during the election year, sometimes it's the summer, sometimes it's the fall, I hear from companies when I'm talking with them, they say, well, I want to see how the election goes before I invest into either expansion or getting my product out there or doing these different things. Other ones don't. They just, not that they ignore it, but they just go full steam ahead. They have a plan. Doesn't matter who wins or who's the president. What would you tell somebody it's not a brand new company, they're established, but they want to grow? What's the best way to approach that? Because every 4 years we're doing this, and every 4 years it's, media drama and everything for a whole year. What's your approach to politics influencing business decisions and what you do?
Well, we bought 9 acres at the beginning of the year with a 40,000 square foot building, getting plans for a 2-phase, 165,000 square foot and then 155,000 square foot to be built after that. We started a packaging company making boxes. So we got a building for that up in Wright City, Missouri. And then we have the EGR filter that we've invested in, FASS Motorsports, because we've gotten we have a ton of CNCs coming in. We have some of them in now, laser cutters, CNC tube benders with robotic welders. So we did that. We just hired a full-time renter to install the FASS Motorsports stuff and to help us with R&D. And we're getting ready to hire another engineer. So I just almost put my head down and I go through the wall. And because one thing that I know is that in any market, you can make money. It might be tougher, but in any market, you can make money if you keep your eyes open and adjust. It's like these small shops that go out of business, because of like Walmart moving in and things like that. You got to figure out a way to beat them. Form some kind of co-op. I don't know, but it's a chess game.
Yeah. Well, it's invaluable, your insights, because diesel shop owners or people involved in the industry, I don't think they have a place to look to get these sorts of insights. And they might not be able to have the time, or you might not have the time to chat with them, or they might be afraid to ask you if they see you somewhere. And they might not say this, but they can hear you on this podcast. And I feel like they need this kind of advice, like we talked about in the beginning, about growing together, being competitive and trying to get sales. But I want to see this industry continue to grow. I know you do. I know the enthusiasts do. But it's like,
Here's some advice. You can never replace time. You can replace everything else, almost everything else, but you can't replace time. I've called so many people, and I know some that I'm thinking of right off the top of my head. They're always so busy, but they're busy doing what? Because when you call them up, and I had to get rid of an old business partner because he was busy doing nothing. But whenever I would call, he would never say, "Hey, Brad, can I give you a call back? Or I have to go get this taken care of or this taken care of," because he can always talk to me. But he always had time to talk. Always. I know another shop owner, used to be a shop owner, he had to close his business down. He always had time to talk. And I think it's where we put our priorities. And there's nothing wrong with saying, "Hey, you know what? Let me get back with you," or you need to dedicate people. But there's always time to learn. I mean, we're on a podcast right now, but you can sit there, put a headset in, walk around, and like we're doing a documentary on the companies and the health and everything. But when I'm driving, I go through my Instagram, and a lot of it's on health. I can sit there and learn going down the road. So where do you put your time? So yeah, I think there's some exceptions to when you have to get down to grinding and get something done. But one of the things that I would do is I pick up the book. I hate reading, so I'm lying to you. I pick up an audiobook and I'm listening. Right now I'm listening to Breathe, just breathing. It's amazing how breathing will affect the alignment of your teeth, your nasal passages, the energy that you have, how long you'll live, and everything else. So I'm listening to that right now. And guess what? How you feel is going to actually be on your business. See, I believe that we can live to at least 120, 130 years. If you don't follow the food pyramid that the FDA put out for you. Okay. So I'm going to have a duration unless I'm going to die probably in my car or my boat. So that's going to be my casket. So, but no, I'm not going to die because of eating this crap that Kennedy's talking about and everything, because we're developing and we work this hard to develop something. And then we're near the end of our life when we're 70-ish, 80-ish. No, well, I'm going for duration.
I think that's really, really good advice. Like I said, people have requested to have you on the podcast for years. I was really excited when we were able to set this up, and there's a lot of things I was just curious about, and it helps me understand not just the industry, but then also business and how people interact with it. That's always been something that piques my curiosity. I know you're a very busy guy. I appreciate you chatting with me today, Brad, answering some of our listener questions, some of my own, and I look forward to seeing what you guys are expanding into, developing, not just with FASS, the lift pumps, but then also with EGR systems, maybe some other things you guys are working on. So it's fantastic to chat with you today.
You too, and you'll have to watch the fight coming up that I went back pro again in boxing, and I have another fight in January 25th. Jake will be making it live.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'll tune into that.
Yeah.
Very
It
cool.
was a great time.
Awesome. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir.
Don't forget, Diesel fans, make sure and head on over to Kershaw.kaiusa.com. Use code 40 TDP 2024 to get 40% off of MSRP. It's a great way to save some money and get some cool gear if you're in the market for a new EDC knife, something for hunting, fishing, around the job site, around the house. They got you covered with a bunch of different choices for blade steel, blade shape, different handle designs, and their whole lineup's designed to meet any budget that you might have. So we appreciate them offering that discount code just to Diesel Podcast listeners. Also want to give a shout out to some of our Patreon supporters: Tyler Loewen at 23 Diesel, CUTTERUP, Rob, J Cole, all of our other Patreon supporters, all of you who subscribe on YouTube and podcast apps, follow us on social media. We appreciate all your support here in year 8 of the Diesel Podcast and look forward to bringing you more of the content that you want to hear in 2024. Till next time, keep the shiny side up.